Hi everyone, and welcome to another Fusion 360 Challenge of the Month. Earn an Autodesk Certificate of Project Completion by joining the Fusion 360 Monthly Challenge. And if you want to find out more about our monthly challenge, you can type Fusion 360 Monthly Challenge on your favorite search engine. And joining the monthly challenge is very easy. All you have to do is email us your full name, school, or company name to autodeskcommunityphilippines@gmail.com. Inspecting our 2D drawing, obviously this rectangular box is our base component. Let me minimize this one. Heading to our main file, right-click and select New Component. Left-click and left-click once more to rename our new component. Let's name this as Base. Hitting Enter. Keep in mind, whenever we are working on a specific component, it should always be activated. Our base already activated. And before we start sketching, let's change our units into inch. Hitting OK, grabbing our rectangle by hitting R and selecting our XZ plane. Let's change the rectangle options to center rectangle. Let's now drop our center point at the origin. According to our 2D drawing, this is a square. I'm going to key in 0.5. Hit Enter. Zoom in, select this top horizontal line, left click and control left click this left vertical line, right click and select equal. So it turned into black, meaning it's fully constrained. Let's grab our extrude tool by hitting E. I'm going to go to our home view. Prompted to select a profile, selecting this square profile. Let's drag this arrow up, the height to be 1 inch. Operation New Body and hit OK. Next, let's create the hole here, hitting C for circle. Let's sketch on our YZ plane. Notice as I hover over our YZ plane, Fusion 360 informs us that if we perform a left click, this face will be selected. Now in order to select nested items, all we have to do is to hold our left mouse button and a drop down will appear. So in this instance, our intent is to select our YZ plane. Let's drop our center point here, diameter to be 0.19, hitting Enter. Next, our intent is to align our center point with our origin vertically. Let's grab our horizontal vertical constraint, select our center point and the origin. Hitting D for dimension, selecting the center point and our origin. Left click here to place our dimension, keying in 0.7, hitting Enter. Next, let's hit E for extrude, making sure our selection mode is window, creating a window selection to select the circular profile. Let's change the direction to 2 sides, and I want both sides to have an extent to all. Operation cut and hitting OK. Going to home view. Another very important tip is to always ground your parent component. So heading to base, right click and select ground. Now by grounding an object, we are simply removing all its degrees of freedom. Let's move this component. Holding our left mouse button, we can move our component. I'm going to hit undo, going back to base, and finally selecting ground. Next, let's model the axle, going to our main file, or let's head to assemble, select new component. Let's name this as axle. The parent to be our main file. Next, we want our new component to be activated. Lastly, we are not creating a sheet metal component, so let's leave this unchecked, hitting OK. And if the silhouette of our base is bothersome, we can head to our axle, right click, and select isolate. Next, hitting C for circle. Let's sketch on our YZ plane. Drop our center point at the origin. The diameter of the circle is 0.19, hitting enter. Hitting E for extrude, selecting this profile. For direction, let's change this to symmetric and the whole length to be 1.5. Operation new body and hit OK. Create another component, heading to our main file. Right click and select new component. Let's rename this to color. Hitting enter. Right click on color and let's select isolate. Hitting C for circle, selecting our YZ plane. Diameter for our outer circle to be 0.43. Hitting enter. Inner circle to be 0.19, hitting enter twice. Hitting E for extrude, selecting our profile, changing the direction to symmetric, whole length to be 0.3, operation new body and hit OK. Next, let's create the 3-hole link. Going to our main file, right click, selecting new component, naming this as 3-hole dash link, hitting enter. In addition, we can also create the 5-hole link component immediately. So right clicking, selecting new component, naming this as 5-hole dash link, hitting enter. And of course, we will be working first on 3 holes, so activating this component, isolating this as well, right click, selecting isolate. Let's grab our slot tool, hitting S. To grab our model toolbox, typing SL. And selecting center to center slot, and we'd like our slot to be placed on our YZ plane. Left click here, left click here, and left click once more. So notice we did not enter any value. Let's grab our dimension tool, hitting D, selecting this horizontal line. I'm going to key in 2, zooming out. Let's select this arc and key in 0.25 for its radius. Hitting C for circle, create circles that has a diameter of 0.19, hitting enter. Grabbing our circle once more. Let's drop this at the midpoint of this horizontal line. Let's not input any value. Instead, left click immediately, creating another circle here, left click, hitting escape. Next, let's grab our equal constraint, selecting this parent. this one to be the child, repeating the process, selecting this as the child. Next, let's grab our coincident constraint, grab this midpoint or center point, and place this at the origin. Hitting escape. Let's reposition this dimension. Hitting E for extrude, selecting this profile. Direction to be symmetric. The thickness to be 0.1. Operation U body and hitting OK. Moving forward, let's create the geometry for our 5-hole link. Activating our component, right click and select, or better yet, head up to our main file, right click and select Unisolate All, head back to 5-hole link, right click and select Isolate. Let's grab our line tool, hitting L. Let's sketch on the YZ plane. Let's create a horizontal line, left click here, the length to be 4, hitting enter. Next, I'd like to position this line midpoint to our origin, so selecting our line and our origin, right click, selecting midpoint, zooming out. This line is a construction line, so selecting this, hitting X. Let's grab our circle, hitting C. Let's place our first circle at the endpoint. Diameter to be 0.19. Creating another circle on this other endpoint. Left click. Notice that the holes for this slot or the circles are evenly spaced. Our strategy for this moment is whenever this dimension is modified, all of the circles should retain its equal distance. To do this, let's first create our third circle here at the origin. Left click. I'm going to hit L for line. Create another line from this circle to our origin. Double left click. Creating another line from our origin to this circle. Double left click. Next, grab our circle and drop the center point at the midpoint of this line. So creating another circle at the endpoint, left click. Let's now grab our equal constraint, selecting the parent, this to be the child. Finally, this circle, hitting escape. And to check, let's change the dimension to 6, hitting enter, and confirm our circles adapted and retained its equal spacing. So hitting undo. Let's now create the slot using our line tool, hitting L, creating a line, holding our left mouse button to create an arc, release, hold it once again and connect it to the end point, hitting escape, selecting this arc and this line, right click, selecting tangent, same here, this arc and this line, right click, selecting tangent, selecting this arc and our line, right click, selecting concentric, zooming in, selecting this arc and the circle, right click, selecting concentric. Let's move this up. Finally, hitting D for dimension. Let's select this arc and key in 0.25, hitting enter. It's fully constrained, so hitting E for extrude, selecting this profile, direction to be symmetric, our thickness to be 0.1, operation U body, and hitting OK. In the next video, we will assemble these components and Add joints.